Okay, guys. So this was 12 years ago or so when Rachel did this interview with the first round of Kill the Gays bill. Uganda has since passed this bill. She's done more recent interviews, and I've posted those and commentary on it. I've posted those on the YouTube channel. But I think it's important that we realize that for the last 12, 15 years, maybe even longer, that certain right-wing groups are actively in places like Uganda trying their level best to illegalize homosexuality and to kill us. And these are test cases. These are the starts of theocracies that ultimately they want the United States to be. Seven Mountain Dominionist theology is very dangerous. This rhetoric is very dangerous, and we need to stand up against it all the time, not just during Pride Month, all the time. We need to stand up and speak out against this. Oh, Lord. So I'm going to continue to cover this and be posting more about it in other sources. Make sure that you guys do like and subscribe and ring that bell. I appreciate it. Have a great one.
Then that means the president is indoctrinating school children with... The slippery slope is the idea that if one thing happens, inevitably a whole bunch of other things will happen as well. So if the president wants to give a speech to school children, then that means the president is indoctrinating school children with his political ideology, which means our schools are political indoctrination centers. And since indoctrination breeds zealots, and zealots will do anything for the cause about which they are zealous, then public schools are becoming camps to breed child soldiers for Obamaism, which means Obama is doing what Hitler did. So presidential speech to school kids equals Fourth Reich. Slippery slope. A leads to B, B leads to C, eventually A leads to Z, and you not washing your hands before dinner means you're on death row. You hear this kind of argument all the time in American politics. It's a be afraid argument. Explaining to a patient their option to fill out a living will, that should be a reimbursable expense for doctors under Medicare. That's death panels, pulling the plug on grandma. Don't do thing A now because hypothetically that could lead to thing Z down the road. Sometimes, though, it's not hypothetical. Sometimes you don't need to imagine the hyperbolically awful thing that might happen someday as a consequence of some smaller step you take now. Sometimes you can just watch life careen down the slippery slope right in front of your eyes. In the late 70s, a former second runner-up Miss America and sort of popular singer named Anita Bryant became the nation's celebrity spokesperson against gay rights in America. She led a campaign for Dade County, Florida, to repeal a county non-discrimination policy. Anita Bryant argued that the county must be allowed to fire people for being gay because gay people are predators who recruit school children into homosexuality.
Bryant drew attention with statements like, quote, gays can't reproduce, they have to recruit, end of quote.
The war goes on to save our children because the seed of sexual sickness that germinated in Dade County has already been transplanted by misguided liberals in the U.S. Congress.
This is one of the foundational myths of anti-gay activism. Gay people are out to get kids. That's the gay agenda, to recruit kids to be gay, because that's how gay people get that way. They're lured into it by recruiters who sexually abuse them as kids and thereby turn them gay. So opposing gay people's rights is a means of protecting the children from the gays. I say this is a myth because the people whose job it is to know these things say it's a myth. They've proved it. The American Psychological Association says homosexual men are not more likely to sexually abuse children than heterosexual men are. Quote, no specific psychosocial or family dynamic cause for homosexuality has been identified, including histories of childhood sexual abuse. That, of course, does not stop anti-gay activists from making that assertion, that gay people are out to recruit kids, making that assertion over and over again. Jerry Falwell telling supporters of his old-time gospel hour by direct mail in 1981, quote, please remember homosexuals do not reproduce, they recruit, and many of them are after my children and your children. Senator Jesse Helms of North Carolina pushing for years for anti-gay restrictions in federal education law because the homosexuals are out to recruit in the schools. In 1995, Congressman Pete Hoekstra's committee convening hearings on parents, schools, and values. Hearings that in part investigated, yes, homosexual recruitment in the schools. The proponents of Proposition 8 in California, the proposition to roll back gay rights in that state, making their case just last year.
And they can't reproduce.
fall down the slippery slope. You make this argument, Anita Bryant, Jesse Helms, random anti-gay orator guy. You make this argument that you oppose gay people's civil rights because gay people are out to get kids. Never mind the facts. You like making the case. We're out to save the children from the homosexuals who prey on them. What's the next logical step? If gay people are out to get the kids, how are you going to protect the kids? Keep gays away from the kids. Keep gays from being declared normal. Protect people's rights to fire people for being gay if they don't want to work with them. Protect people's right to kick somebody out of their housing for being gay if you don't want to live near them. Protect the children. Counteract the recruitment. Show that homosexuality is wrong. Make homosexuality illegal. Make homosexuality have severe punishments. Make it have really severe punishments. Make being gay punishable by death. It is not a logical fallacy, the slippery slope, if it really happens. If the arguments made by anti-gay activists ultimately redound to serious legal proposals to kill people for being gay. In October 2008, Uganda held its National Prayer Breakfast. The National Prayer Breakfast is an event started by the family, mostly known as C Street here in the U.S., a powerful secretive religious organization in the U.S. with ties to many members of Congress. One of the founders of Uganda's National Prayer Breakfast, a member of the family, floated the idea at an event associated with that breakfast that Uganda should have a kill the gays law, that homosexuality should be punishable by life in prison, or in the case of aggravated homosexuality, it should be punishable by death. A few months later, in March of last year, the guy from the family who drafted the bill hosted a delegation of anti-gay activists from the United States, preaching, surprise, that gay people are a threat to children. They're out to recruit in the schools. And they also said nobody is stuck being gay if they don't want to be. It's a learned behavior. It can be cured. A few weeks after their visit, the Kill the Gays bill was introduced. Meanwhile, the anti-gay populist press in that country started campaigning. This publication published a list of allegedly gay Ugandans, along with, in many cases, their addresses and their photos. You can see a small yellow banner underneath the S in Uganda's. It says, "Hang them." Because of the American connections to this, the fact that the author's a member of the family, which is tied to a lot of American politicians through C Street and elsewhere. Because the resultant publicity earned criticism for the Kill the Gays bill from our president, Secretary of State, lots of the politicians associated with C Street. It is fairly widely believed, because of that coverage, that the Kill the Gays thing is over. It's not. Its author expects it to be voted on in a matter of weeks. And its author is here in the United States, promoting Anita Bryant's old line that he's only doing this to save the children. The author of Uganda's Kill the Gays bill joins me at the bottom of the slippery slope next. The reason we know basically anything about C Street and the secretive religious group behind it, the family, is because of Jeff Charlotte's 2 books on the subject. The family is most famous for operating C Street, a secretive subsidized dorm for members of Congress in Washington. It was linked to the Governor Mark Sanford sex scandal and the Senator John Ensign sex scandal and the Congressman Chip Pickering sex scandal. But as Jeff Charlotte has reported, the deeper reaches of the family are bigger than sex scandals. The groups essentially helped along a number of super shady causes and characters in countries around the world for decades, including some of the worst dictators in modern history. As part of Jeff's ongoing reporting on the activities of this secretive religious group, he has been keeping us updated on the Kill the Gays bill promoted by the family's key man in the nation of Uganda, a member of parliament named David Bahati. It was also Jeff who let us know that David Bahati had been granted a visa to come to America. David Bahati is here now. He sees this trip as an opportunity to promote here his Kill the Gays bill. Joining us now for the interview is the member of parliament in Uganda who introduced the bill and is promoting it, Mr. David Bahati. Mr. Bahati, thank you very much for your time, sir. It's nice for you to make time for us.
Great to be at your talk show.
You were granted a visa, as I understand it, to attend a conference in Washington, the International Consortium of Governmental Financial Management. I understand that it's been reported that you were not allowed into the conference once you arrived. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. One of the reasons they gave was that because of the bill that I proposed in Parliament, their denial for me to enter the conference was extremely unfortunate, but as I said, does not deter me from pursuing the cause that I think is important, a cause to defend the children of our country, and a cause to defend the family of Uganda.
in the cause that you describe as defending the children and the family in Uganda, it's your anti-homosexuality bill, and the provisions of that bill would establish life in prison for any homosexual act, as well as execution for what the bill calls aggravated homosexuality. How is that defending the children and the families of Uganda?
You know, Rachel, we have a huge problem in our country. The problem of people who are coming from abroad, investing in money to recruit children into a behavior that we believe that is a learned behavior and can be unlearned. We know that homosexuality is a human right here in Uganda, but also we need to appreciate the fact that it is not a human right across the world, and certainly in Uganda we don't take it as a human right. And as we debate this issue, it is important that we do tolerate one another, listen to one another, understand the background of one another, and respect one another. And the background that I come from is that 95% of the population does not support homosexuality. We believe that man was created to marry a woman, and that's the purpose for which God created us, a purpose for procreation, and that's a higher purpose that we believe in. We believe that our children should not be recruited in something that they don't believe in. The clause that you are suggesting in the bill, that you are talking about in the bill, that proposes death penalty, was actually a small clause in the bill which was imported from a bill that we passed in 2007 regarding defilement of children. It's a clause meant to discipline those adults who defile minors. And by the way, it is a clause that because of the international outcry that I'm very much willing to drop when the bill comes to the House for debate.
It should be noted that among these 7 different clauses of aggravated homosexuality is one where you are eligible for execution if you are a serial offender. Does that mean that if you are a person who has been convicted more than once of homosexual sex, would that make you a serial offender and eligible for the death penalty?
I know there has been a lot of spin, negative propaganda about this bill using that clause, and I want to make the record straight. I am not in a hate campaign. I do not hate gays. I love them, but at the same time I must protect our children who are being recruited into this practice.
So what evidence do you have for the recruitment of children into homosexuality? That allegation has been made to justify all anti-gay legislation in the United States going back for more than a generation. It is a claim that is rejected by all, for example, major medical organizations in the United States and by all other responsible authorities that have looked into it. You're saying specifically that foreigners are investing in Uganda to recruit children into homosexuality. I've heard claims like that over and over again. I have never, ever heard any credible evidence of it.
Rachel, I need to tell you that it is not an allegation. It's a fact that recruitment is taking place in Uganda, especially in single-sex schools. It's a fact that is very disturbing. It's a fact that is not only disturbing people who don't believe in homosexuality. Even the pro-gay groups have condemned this. So it is something that is factual, and all you need is to get these facts, and I will be very willing to publish these facts.
I have heard a lot of other people ask you for evidence on this. I have heard you assert that it is fact. I have never, as I said, seen any evidence that is fact. How, for example, do you suggest that children are recruited into homosexuality? If you wanted to recruit somebody into homosexuality, how would you do it, and what do you think the tactics are?
I can tell you that in the last 7 months, there has been a lot of investment in terms of money. Close to $15 million has been invested to fight the bill, but also to recruit children. And this is how they do it. They go into a school, they recruit some people, teach them, entice them with money to lure them into this practice. And this is something that is disturbing everybody. This is something that disturbs, and I'm sure you're also being disturbed about this fact.
To be clear, sir, you're saying that $15 million is being spent in Uganda in the past 7 months, not only to oppose the bill, but to give money to teachers to go into schools to pay kids to become gay. That's your assertion? Not to pay teachers, but to use, they recruit young people. They pick on young people, recruit them, teach them on how to move, entice them. There are videos that have been moving around. Tell them that a man sleeping with a man is okay. So this is something that is really disturbing, and this is the focus of this bill, to protect our children. This is also
to defend the traditional family.
Sir, this is also one of the. I didn't expect to find much international commonality around debates over gay rights and homosexuality, but what you're describing is one of the foundational myths of how gay people have been slandered and attacked in almost every country in which these laws, or laws like the ones that you're proposing, has been debated. The idea, this myth that gay people are out recruiting kids, asserted as if it is baldly true, no evidence of it is ever been put forward in any way that can be evaluated, and every responsible authority who's ever looked into it says that it is a myth. If you think that there are videos out there of young people being recruited to homosexuality in Ugandan schools, why haven't you released them?
Well, we have enough evidence to this effect in Uganda. Ugandans have looked at this. We can publish it if you want on the internet so that everybody in the world can have a look at it. It's not a myth. It's a fact that this is happening. It's very disturbing that's happening to our children, and it is a cause that you and me should support to make sure that we protect the children of Uganda.
If you make homosexuality punishable by life in prison, or in some cases by execution, what do you think will happen to gay people in Uganda? Will they flee the country? Will they become straight? What do you expect that they will do? What will happen to them?
Rich, I think it is important that you don't use words that we don't use in our bill. We don't use the word execution. Don't make it so hard to look as if Bahati is a Hitler or is a Saddam Hussein or Idi Amin. I'm just a simple young man who lost both parents at the age of 3 years, grew up as an orphan. I have a passion for children, and this is what is really motivating me. I'm a God-fearing person. I want to make sure that this law is consistent with God's law.
To be clear, Mr. Bahati, I didn't call you Hitler or Saddam Hussein or Idi Amin. I didn't raise any of those issues, and I never would. And although you don't want to use the phrase execution, that's just a simile for the death penalty, which is part of your bill. And I realize you said you'd be willing to take that out. But let's even say that was taken out. I'll ask you the question again. If your bill succeeds and you make homosexuality punishable by life in prison in Uganda, what will happen to gay people in Uganda? What do you expect to happen to them? Do you expect that they will become straight? Do you expect that they'll flee the country? Do you expect that they will be arrested and imprisoned? What do you think will happen?
Well, Rachel, first of all, I want to say that I know that homosexuality is a human right here now in America. But we don't believe that's a human right in Uganda. And we understand your side of the story. And we respect you and ask you to also understand our side of the story. Now, if we take it as a crime, then anybody who is engaged in this will face the rule of law. And this, I think, is straightforward. It's obvious. We hope that's a learned behavior that can be unlearned.
Okay. I used the word simile when I meant synonym. I know. Sue me. I'm sorry. Where do you think he gets that idea that homosexuality can be cured? It can be unlearned. Please stay tuned. There's more. You know, talking to people who want you dead, you sort of get used to. Talking to people who are actively working to make that happen is unsettling. It can lead to outbursts. It's more than your opinion. It is the thing that has made you internationally famous, and it may be the thing ultimately that results in you being charged with crimes against humanity in some sort of international tribunal. More of my interview with the author of the Kill the Gays bill still to come. I know that recently in Uganda, last month and in October, a small newspaper published names and addresses and photos of Ugandans who are allegedly gay, and it published a big banner that said, "Hang them." If your bill passes, should police use that information to go hunt these people down and arrest them?
I know that paper, the Rolling Stone, and I think these are young people who are also concerned on the huge problem that we have in our country. They are people who are frustrated by lack of a clear and specific law that can address this problem. And once the law passes, we would expect that the enforcement agencies would do their part to implement the clauses of the law. But this is a bill, Rachel. It's being discussed in Parliament. We expect proposals from all over the corners of the world, and it's debated through a democratic process in a democratic country. It's a Ugandan bill meant for Ugandans to protect the children of Uganda.
But let me ask you about that, though. One other provision in the bill that I think is very interesting is that if Ugandans who are gay go anywhere else in the world, they go to any other country, and they commit something that is an offense under your bill, so they have sexual relations in another country, your bill provides that they should be extradited from that other country back to Uganda to face prosecution. That implies that you are trying to eradicate homosexuality, not just in Uganda, but anywhere else that it might exist in the world. Is that your goal?
We are proposing this for Ugandans, and within the constitution and the legal framework of our country. It has nothing to do with Americans. It has nothing to do with other people of the world, because Uganda is a sovereign state. It respects other sovereign states.
But somebody who was visiting here on a visa like you have from Uganda, who engaged in a consensual relations here in Washington, D.C., where you are, or in New York City, where I am, you would expect the United States government to extradite that person to Uganda to face prosecution for that relationship in the threat of life imprisonment. You think the United States government should do that as respect for Uganda?
That can well happen in countries where we have working protocols that can admit that. Where it cannot, then it will not happen. But I think the bottom line, Rachel, is to make sure that we protect the children. That's the bottom line we're looking at, to defend the tradition of family in Uganda.
How do gay people hurt the traditional family in Uganda? The existence of gay people living in Uganda, having relationships with one another, how does that hurt your family, for example?
It hurts my family when my child goes to school and is converted into gay in a practice that it is not acceptable in our society. It distorts the course of family. It hurts my family. It hurts the family of Uganda when the purpose of creation is undermined.
Sir, when you say that homosexuals are recruiting children to be gay, you say that you have evidence for this.
I do have abundant evidence.
Okay, we would happily post anything that you've got online if you've got it. I have never seen evidence of this.
And I can give you enough evidence through your email.
Okay. And American Psychological Association, which would be the appropriate medical authorities looking into this, completely deny and defy the idea that anything like that has ever happened. They describe this as a myth that has been used to hurt gay people that is not based in fact. Does that give you any pause at all in asserting that as grounds for putting people in prison for life for being gay?
You know, we respect America, we respect the views from America, but I think we have our own views and our own mechanism to find out what affects our citizens in Uganda. Homosexuality is not a way of life that we accept in our country. It's not part of our culture. It's not part of God's law. And this is Uganda.
What is God's law about homosexuality in your view?
God's law is that homosexuality is sin.
Punishable by?
God's law is that homosexuality is sin. And God's law says that all authority comes from him, and we should also consider what belongs to Caesar. We also know that it is also consistent, this bill is consistent with the preachings of a son of a Jewish carpenter.
So, to be clear, you're telling me you're sort of going halfway there, and I'm asking you to explain your full view on this, because this is clearly what's motivating you, and I'm trying to figure out your ultimate aim here.
Yes.
In your view, God's law is that homosexuality is a sin. In your view, does God's law prescribe an appropriate punishment for that sin?
God's law is always clear that the wages of sin is death. Whether that is implemented through a legislation like mine or by a mechanism of a human being, whatever happens is the end result that we need to turn to God if we have sinned. I'm not involved in a hate campaign. I'm not involved in something of that nature that you are trying to describe. I'm involved in providing a framework to protect our children and make sure that everybody has an input in this bill. This is a proposal. Some of the ideas can be dropped. Some of them can be accepted. Others can be adjusted. But the spirit of the bill is what we need to look at. We need to look at the problem of recruitment, the problem of promotion, and the problem of care for the victims.
To be clear, again, sir, I didn't say that you were hateful, nor did I say that you were part of a campaign of hate, nor did I compare you to Hitler, nor did I compare you to Saddam Hussein, nor did I compare you to Idi Amin. You have raised all of those things yourself, and I have not said any of them, and I don't want you to put words in my mouth here. The reason that you're on this show and the reason that you have become famous is because you are promoting life imprisonment for all gay people in your country, and your country has a lot of gay people who do not want to be subject to life in prison. And I think the international community is trying to decide whether or not Uganda is going to become an international pariah, a rogue state excluded from the community of nations because you are singling out a minority among your population for treatment that, frankly, is not the direction that the rest of the world is going. And that is all that I'm trying to do. I'm not accusing you of anything, sir. I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let me ask you one last thing. On tomorrow's show, that one last thing. What David Bahati sees as the level of material support and encouragement he gets for his international anti-gay crusade, and how it links to his membership in The Family, the secretive religious group that operates the C Street House in Washington, D.C., where lots of congressmen live. Also, we waited all day by the inbox expecting that evidence he promised of kids in school being paid American money to become gay. Still hasn't arrived. Totally checking the junk mail filters right now. We'll be right back.